welcome to our British Polymer Clay Guild Facebook page and our first live interview, and we're delighted to welcome Ginger Davis-Allman all the way from the US, and you may have come across her page, The Blue Bottle Tree. So it's really great to have you here, and I really appreciate you coming at quite short notice and taking time out of your schedule to come and see us. Really appreciate
I'm glad
that.
to be here.
Excellent. So tell us, why are you in the UK at the moment?
My husband is from the UK, and his sister just got married, and she had a steampunk themed wedding, which was a lot of fun, and that's why we're here. So we took the whole month off to tour the country and have fun and have a little bit of a vacation.
Fantastic. So where have you been while you've been in the UK?
Well, we're based in Portsmouth. That's where he's from and where his family's from. And so we started there, but then we went up to Wales to see Penny Van Gogh at Play Around, and then we were back down to Portsmouth, and then we went to London to see the London Guild, and then we were up to see, we went to, can't remember the name of the town. The place.
Is it Nottingham?
We went to Nottingham as well, and saw the East Midlands Guild there, and went to the Yorkshire Dales and the Yorkshire Moors.
Yes, I've heard you've been doing quite a bit of walking.
We've done a lot of walking.
Yes,
it's been wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm so sore.
You've been really lucky with the weather as well.
It's been fantastic. It's been hot. It's actually, I complain a lot about the weather here because it's always cold compared to the US, and at least where I live in the US, and it's actually been hot.
Yes, not that anybody's going to believe it today because it's actually raining, but hey ho, typical British weather. Okay, so we've got some questions lined up for you, and we'll go through them and see what comes along. Okay. Now, anybody who's watching us online, just can you give us a thumbs up or a little love? That would be great. Feel free to ask your questions, and just bear in mind there's a bit of a delay between recording and actually going live, so we'll try and get to you as soon as we can. But we've got a bunch of questions here already. So tell us, what did you do BC, i.e. before clay?
BC, before clay. I was a science geek.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a master's degree in microbiology, and I worked for quite a few years doing molecular biology research, which is, I used to joke that it's cutting up DNA with little tiny scissors.
Wow.
But that's what I did, and then I stopped doing that to raise my kids.
Okay, and was that the point you got into polymer clay?
Pretty much, a little bit after that. I think, as anybody does when they've got several kids, I've got 3 kids, and when they were little, they were very busy, and all I wanted was some peace and quiet. So I bought one of those lovely little Sculpey activity kits. I think it was frogs, something like that. And I thought it was going to keep my son busy, and he wasn't as much interested in it as I was, and that's kind of where it took off. And it just became an instant addiction.
Yeah, yeah. I think polymer clay tends to do that to you, doesn't it?
I think everybody I meet, they say that they're absolutely addicted to it.
Yeah, yeah. So were you a crafter before? Or?
Oh, serial crafter.
Well, yeah.
Everything, absolutely everything. Which actually works out pretty well now because it means that I've got lots of supplies and lots of background knowledge that I can apply to lots of different things.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us are like that. So I think it works well in music clay.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think with polymer clay, it's a wonderful medium that can imitate so many others, and you can take stuff from doing cake decorating to quilting and all kinds of things. It's
and you can make things in clay to use in other crafts, such as buttons for knitting. I know a lot of people got into it, making buttons for the knitting.
Yeah,
too.
Me too. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Covering crochet hooks.
Right.
Do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic. Okay. So, and so obviously, you obviously picked up a kit for your kids, but how did you develop it from there? Did you, come across books or videos? Who inspired you?
Because I was cooped up at home with kids, and it's difficult to get out, and you can't take classes, and I didn't have much budget for buying books. Things were pretty tight back in those days. So I did most of my learning online, and I was absolutely fascinated with Polymer Clay Central was a good place to start. I learned a lot there, and I was absolutely fascinated by what I saw there. All the artists there were very inspiring for me. In fact, the person who started Polymer Clay Central, Lee Ross, was actually one of the first that was very much inspiring. And I was really into caning and millefiori in the beginning.
Yes.
And color and things like that.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, we're so lucky these days that we have
So
amazing resources.
Absolutely
And
just you Google anything and it's there.
yes, yeah. And I have to say, you know, the Polymer Clay community has been one of the most wonderful communities as I've joined, particularly online with social media.
It's very welcoming. I've been involved in lots of other communities, such as, being a sewer and a knitter and all these different types of crafts. I tend to get involved in the communities there, and there's something about clayers. They're just so much more open and welcoming and friendly and warm. It's
Do you think it's because it's, I mean, I know FEMO's 50 years old this year, but do you think it's because it's actually a relatively new media?
I hadn't really thought of it that way. I don't know. I don't know why it is. I think it fascinates me how each craft has their own type of people that get involved in it, and Polymer very much has a type of people that are just very friendly.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
Yeah,
it's really good.
So I mean, it seems it's very big in America. Lots of people know about it. Would you say? Or?
No.
No? Okay,
No.
so very much like the UK.
Very much like the UK.
That people come and see and go, oh,
we always
what's
joke,
that?
the other clayer friends that I have, we always joke that somebody must be buying all the clay at Michael's. Because it disappears and all the good colors are always gone when it goes on sale, but we're not sure who they are because you talk to people and nobody's ever heard of it.
Yeah.
And it's what? You heard of FEMO? No, what's that? And then you end up with this big, long conversation. So it's
okay. So currently, whose work do you admire now? Who's kind of big in your world?
That's one of the things about being in the position I'm in, because I pay so close attention to so many people online. I see so many people, so much work, and it's impossible to name all the people that I admire. But gosh, where do you even begin? I admire different things about different people.
Sure.
And one of the things that comes to mind right off the bat is Donna Greenberg. Absolutely thrills me with her relentless experimentation, constantly experimenting. I admire. There's a cluster of artists that I was lucky enough to meet recently. In the London Guild, Angela Garrett, Angela Girdle, and Connie Brockstrait, and Christine Dumont, and they do such. I absolutely admire their pursuit of design, and I think it's wonderfully inspiring. I love John Burgess. I love Claire Monsell, and another person that absolutely blows my mind is Stacey Louise Smith, because she's got 3 kids, and as someone who's raised 3 children myself, I don't know how she does what she does, but she keeps putting out the most amazing work.
Yeah.
And I just would love to be a fly on the wall and watch how she does everything that she does. So there's a lot of people that fascinate me.
Yeah. No, it's a fantastic community. So obviously, your kind of science and technical background has really helped with your blogging on your website, and you write the most wonderful blogs about the technical aspects about polymer clay. And always, as a bit of a science geek myself, I always find them really fascinating to read. So that's great. So, but obviously, especially for beginners who haven't explored all the different avenues of polymer clay, what would you say are the 5 top myths about polymer clay?
Myths. Well, it's interesting to me that there are so many myths about polymer clay, and it's a little bit like the old game of telephone that it'll start off one way and then the myth will go and go and go and go and go.
Okay, it's what we would call Chinese whispers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it changes.
Sure.
And then next thing you know, people are repeating things that are absolutely not true. And I'd say the top 5, one would be that polymer clay burns easily. Polymer clay doesn't burn easily. Ovens are inaccurate. That's a problem. But as long as your oven is baking at the correct temperature, polymer clay is not going to burn.
Yeah.
People think that polymer clay is weak and brittle. Polymer is not weak and brittle if it's adequately baked and if it is a stronger brand. Mm-hmm. There are more brittle brands, and you do want to avoid those if strength is important. Mm-hmm. But paper thin slices, sheets of female professional, for instance, if baked adequately, are almost so strong you can't break them. You can't tear them apart with your hands. Yeah. A lot of people think that polymer clay needs to be sealed for protection. It doesn't. Polymer clay is vinyl plastic. There's no reason it needs to be sealed. People assume that polymer clay is a toy. It's not. I mean, it is. It's a great toy. Don't get me wrong. It's a fantastic thing for kids to play with, but that's just the beginning.
Sure.
And it's a full-fledged artistic medium. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that. And the last myth I'd say is that polymer clay is toxic. Polymer clay is non-toxic. Is it food? No, it's not food. You don't want to eat it. But are you going to poison your family if you play with it and then forget to wash your hands before you hand somebody a sandwich? Or if you've been playing with clay and you walk through the kitchen and you grab a cookie and eat it, you're not gonna. It's been tested and certified to be non-toxic. Yeah. When it is baking, it is non-toxic as well, unless it's burned. And then it's still not toxic. It just puts out fumes that are irritating. But it's a myth that polymer clay is toxic.
Sure, yeah. And kind of, logically that makes sense because, kids use it. You don't want kids to be using a toxic medium.
I've always wondered how it can be simultaneously a toy and toxic. And sometimes it just doesn't make sense. Yeah. It's, again, the game of telephone.
Yeah, yeah. But it is true, people want to make a vessel, for instance. You wouldn't want it to be holding or storing food. Much like you wouldn't, want to keep water in a water bottle in your car for weeks on end. You just know. Right.
Well, the reason why you're not supposed to use polymer clay with food has more to do with the liability factors of the manufacturers than it has to do with actual toxicity. Now, polymer clay, if you think about it, a manufacturer cannot regulate how you make something. They can't regulate how many nooks and crannies you leave on it. It would be very difficult to clean. It's not designed to be repeatedly repeatedly washed in a dishwasher with caustic soap and hot temperatures and bleach and disinfectants. So it's just not a material that is designed for making food vessels. Yeah. That doesn't mean that once for instance, a knife touches polymer clay, that it forevermore can never be in contact with food ever again. That's not true. You can clean a knife. You have to look at this logically.
Sure. Great. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so you've obviously covered a lot of this stuff on your blogs, on your website. So, and we really, really appreciate that. It's a fantastic resource for the community. What would you say are the most popular articles? What do people go to most?
Probably the articles on baking. I've got a whole series of articles on baking that talk about temperature, how long to bake, some tips about baking, what kind of oven to use, that you need to use an oven thermometer, those kinds of things. So that article is very popular. And also I'd say my article on sealers. I'm very thankful to all the people who share the links to that, specifically that article in particular, because I think unfortunately a lot of newbies think that polymer clay needs to be sealed, and then the problem is many sealers are they stay sticky on polymer clay. So unfortunately they've put all their time and effort and heart and soul into making something, and then they put a sealer on it, especially the spray sealers, and then it gets sticky. And then it's heartbreaking and it's ruined, and I think it's really unfortunate. So I'm really glad that the article is shared a lot.
Yeah.
It's a very popular article.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's interesting because I know that a lady, Sue from Florida, she was mentioning this on one of the groups yesterday that her articles were sticky after she'd sprayed them.
Right.
And she wondered whether it was to do with the humidity. I mean, I think she's put some surface treatments on that she wants to seal in. Does humidity make a difference?
Humidity does make a difference, I've found. I'm not 100% sure what causes some sealers to become sticky or to remain sticky. I suspect that it's an interaction with plasticizers in the baked clay that are impacting the plastic in the sealer. I suspect that's probably what's going on. But I find that humidity absolutely affects the feel, the stickiness level. It's a little bit like when you paint even a wood door or drawers with acrylic paint. You need to let them, for a long time, you need to let them dry because otherwise they'll stick together. I mean, I think we've all seen situations where you paint a door and then close it and then it sticks shut.
Yes.
It stays sticky, and I think humidity has something to do with that, definitely.
Yeah. I particularly liked your experiment where you tested some sealers and put them in through the dishwasher. Have you still got that dishwasher? Is it okay?
I do. It's fine. It's fine. It was really surprising to me how little impact it had on it.
Yeah.
But it didn't affect the clay whatsoever. The clay was fine. Now it was black clay that I used, so I can't tell if it would discolor light colored clay.
Sure.
So I don't know if it would yellow white clay or if it would turn pink or if the colors would run, anything like that.
Yeah.
But it certainly didn't degrade the clay.
Yeah, well, we're glad you do those experiments because some of us aren't brave enough to use our dishwashers in that way. Now we've got a question that's just come in. Let's see, this is Helen White. She's watching. Hello, Helen. And she's baking an elephant. And so thank you for commenting. And I'm quite sure what that one says, but my lovely assistant Fiona here.
Just the name of someone else who's watching and made a comment to say that yes, they're watching and enjoying it.
Okay. Is that Carol? Churul. Hi, Churul. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, so right. So obviously you spend a lot of time blogging and writing your own tutorials. What's your personal favourite technique? What do you enjoy doing the most?
Well, not all of my tutorials and ebooks are about techniques. Some of them are projects and some of them are merely informational explosions almost. I'd say my favourite one is the one that I most recently finished, and that is the sanding and buffing ebook.
Yeah.
And I think it's my favorite because I put the most of myself into it. It is huge. It's about 130 pages, and it took me about 7 months to write it.
Wow. And probably about as long as it takes to sand something.
The thing is, though, if you follow the steps that I have in the sanding and buffing ebook, then you'll find out that sanding doesn't have to be a monster. Sanding can be a monster if you're using materials that aren't effective. I think one of the mantras I have in that ebook is sand smarter, not harder.
Absolutely.
It doesn't. If you're not doing it, I don't want to say right because that implies there's a wrong way, but there are ways that are more labor intensive, and I discuss that in the ebook, all about sanding, about buffing, and all about the different types of sandpapers and machines and tumbling and everything that you could ever think of that's connected with sanding and buffing, and that's my favorite. So far.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to reading that one. Brilliant. Thank you. You obviously, because you just said it took you quite a long time to write that particular tutorial. Do they all take that long?
Well, thankfully, no. My tutorials themselves take, it depends on how complex it is and how much research I have to do, how well it goes. Sometimes you come up with an idea, you think it's fantastic, you work with it, and you realize, that's not going to work. Other times, I was very quick to figure it out. But once I get it figured out what I actually want to write a tutorial about, the actual process of of making all the samples and taking all the photographs and processing all those photographs and writing it out and formatting the tutorial. You're looking at minimum of 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It's pretty, and that's full time. That's full time, day in, day out. That's not just a couple hours here and there.
Yeah.
Now for writing blog posts, which I think the articles on my website, I try not to call it a blog because blog implies that you're, today I did, and I don't really write that kind of a website.
Yeah.
But my articles, those are a lot of time. I'll have to say.
You put so much into them. I'm not surprised.
I do. It takes roughly anywhere from 6 to 12 hours to actually just write the words. So, and that doesn't include the photography. I do all my own photography. I process all of my own photos, and that takes quite a bit of time there. And as lots of times these things go, you will end up taking a lot more photographs than you actually will use. So there's that as well.
Yeah.
And then if I'm doing any testing for the article, there's a lot for that. And sometimes I'm like, I've got things sitting in my studio that are sitting right now, waiting for test results, waiting for me to look at and measure and check out. And sometimes those tests are going to run 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
Easily.
Wow, that's dedication. Real dedication. So we've got another couple of questions. Okay. So Fiona from the UK, how do you decide which things you're going to test next?
What I'm in the mood for sometimes, and sometimes it's because I'll see a lot of questions on Facebook groups. There'll be hot topics. There'll be things that people are really worried about, that there's a lot of confusion about, and I will move those up, and I will do those sooner. It also just depends on how I can fit it in with my schedule.
Yeah.
I've got kids, so and even though 2 of my kids are away from home, they moved out and they're on their own. It takes time to take care of them as well. Sometimes I think they take more time than the one that's still at home. So it just depends on what else is going on.
Yeah. Okay. So, and do you only do your articles and your tutorials, or do you actually make to sell as well? Or?
Well, my tutorials are my product, and that is my only income from. That's my only income. I have a husband as well, but that's my only income. And I do make a few products here and there, but they're usually samples from when I was developing a tutorial. Things that I like, for instance, my organic beads and my rustic beads tutorials. I have lots of samples from those, and I make them occasionally from time to time just for pictures, just because it helps promote the tutorials.
Yeah.
And helps people to see what can be done with the tutorials.
Yeah.
And I do tend to sell those on Etsy.
Okay, fantastic. And so staying on your website, because there's so much information on there, I had to look again recently, how do people find, if they've got a particular question or query, how do they find
I'd say the 2 best ways to find your way around on my website would be, first off, in the upper left-hand corner, on a, is that left? Yeah. No, that's right. The upper right-hand corner, there is a search box. Use the search box. It really good. A lot of search bars on some websites don't come up with good results, but this one really does. It's probably the best way, the fastest way. I use it myself all the time to find my own articles. That's probably the best way to find something in particular. Also, over on the bar, over on the left-hand side, there is a little where it says favorite articles from the Blue Bottle Tree. I maintain a page that has quick links to pretty much all of the really popular posts, and you'll most likely find the information that you're looking for there.
Yeah. So how many articles do you have on your website? Have you ever counted?
I don't know, the way that my software works, it's difficult because it doesn't really give me a number like that. But probably 150 or so different articles. Wow. There's quite a bit. Yeah. There's quite a few.
Fantastic. Okay. And obviously, as tutorials being your project, so you obviously love to see what people make.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so
that's wonderful. That's the best part, really.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic way for you to kind of get your name out there and get your tutorials out there.
It does help. It really does help. It does help me.
Yeah.
Helps me a lot. I think the best part though is seeing how each person interprets what the instructions are and what they make from it. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. One of the things that I think is interesting is that it's a common thread for newbies especially, that they believe that they don't have their own artistic voice, and they believe that everything that they're doing is not good enough, and that, oh, I couldn't do that, and it's not as good as yours. And what I have found is that it's actually quite the opposite. People's own voice comes through so strongly in who they are, and it comes through in their work. So frequently I will see that people, when they send me the pictures from their work that they've done using my tutorials, I can tell who did it just by looking at the pictures, because I see that a theme that runs through who they are in the other work that they do, the colors they choose, the forms that they use, those types of things. So even within the constraints of my particular tutorials, they still so it's wonderful seeing that work.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. Another question from Fiona. How do you think the different age of a person when they discover polymer clay affects their approach to it? That's a really interesting question.
Wow. I don't know that I've ever thought of it that way. That's an interesting question. I can say that different age groups do tend to do different types of polymer work. I know that the young, the early 20s set, they do a lot of charms, cutesy little things. People my age tend to do more jewelry, tend to do more functional items, gifts that they can give their friends and family. So I do think that is, there is a difference there, but I'm not so sure it has to do with how old they were when they started. I know a lot of people worked with polymer when they were young, especially in Europe, because they used Fimo as a child.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to affect, because they seem to approach it as an art medium by the time they're an adult. So I'm not so sure it affects it in that way.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Okay. And so, obviously, we know now that you spend so much time on preparing your articles and your blog posts. Do you ever get time to make things for yourself?
You know the old thing about the cobbler's children have no shoes?
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of the deal. No, I don't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm really bad about life-work balance. My husband is always on me about, will you get off the computer? So no, I don't, unfortunately. I really don't. And I find it frustrating. And that's something that I'm trying to address right now, is finding a way to do my own art.
Yeah, yeah. So even when you're on holiday here, you can't stop talking about polymer clay.
I know. That's okay though. No, that's fine.
Okay, so obviously, we are the British Polymer Clay Guild, and we're trying to encourage more people to learn about polymer clay. And are you a member of a guild yourself in the US? I
am. We do have a guild. I'm a member of the local guild in Springfield, the town that I live in, and we're trying to get it going. It's a little stop and start, but we're trying.
Yeah. Okay. And what do you feel are the benefits for you being a part of a member of your local guild?
I think it's really helpful to join a guild because, first off, like we were talking about before about polymer people being friendly, I think it's all of the guilds that I've been involved with, and all the groups that I've been involved with polymer clay, the people are so welcoming. And I think that when you join a guild, the influx of ideas from seeing the way other people work is wonderful. And you learn things that you don't even realize that you're going to learn. It's not just learning a technique or a tutorial or something like that. It's not just... What I find is fascinating is you end up learning, oh, you hold your blade like that? That's neat. I never thought of doing that. It's the little subtle things like watching the way someone flips something with their hands that, oh, gee, I never thought of that. And those kinds of things are wonderful. And then when you see the work that other people do, I think it's inspiring.
Yeah.
You come home from a guild meeting all fired up, ready to go, ready to get involved with things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some people may think that being a member or to join a guild, that they already need to know and understand how to use a particular medium, whether it's embroidery or quilting or polymer clay, but actually that's not the case at all.
No, I don't think so. I think that most guilds have newbies, a lot of newbies, and I think it's a wonderful place to learn. There's always somebody willing to share and say, oh yeah, here's how to do this and here's how to do that, and you learn very quickly when you watch others as well.
Yeah,
it's easier than learning online.
Yeah, certainly. And I visited a few guild our branches, and we've got our own local branch, and some of it is actually a really social occasion as well, not just about the polymer clay.
You can't stop talking. Yeah, it's just next thing you know, you're just talk, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so carrying on with the theme of beginners, what would you say was the best advice for beginners to get started? Where should they start?
Doesn't matter where you start, just start. Just start and try everything. Try everything. There's no way to screw it up. There's no way to do it wrong. You just try it. I think it's such a common problem, is that you're so afraid you're going to screw it up. So screw it up. It's not what matters? It's clay. It's until you bake clay, you can always wad it up and do something else with it. Start over, repeat it, use it. Even if you mush it all up and you end up with what we call mud clay, kind of all murky, the same color, you can still use it as bead guts, as a core for making beads. You can do all kinds of things. You can sculpt with it. You can always paint it later. Anything. And if you've already baked it and you realize that you don't like it, you can throw it away. You can use it as a base to add other clay onto, but you can paint it. There's just always so many ways you can go with it.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, actually, don't throw it away, because in a few months or a few years' time, you can actually go and look back at where you started from and actually see the progress that you've made as you've learnt new techniques.
That's true. That's true. It makes you feel really good when you realize, I don't want to say how bad you were at the beginning, that sounds kind of bad, but when you realize how far you've come, I think it's thrilling.
Yeah. Okay. And do you have any advice for people who want to make a career in crafts?
Wow, that's a big one.
It is a big one. And quite topical at the moment, because the BBC are actually doing a programme about crafters at the moment. Yeah. The first episode was last night. Definitely worth a watch.
Okay. I think it's really common with polymer people in particular that once they do something and they show it to their friends and family all says, "Oh, you should sell that." And there's nothing wrong with selling to your friends at the office or your family members or the women that you know. That's fine. But if you're going to begin an actual craft business where you want it to be a major part of your income, you have to look at it as a business. You really have to. You have to divorce yourself from looking at it as the things I want to make. You have to make product that your market wants to buy. And that can be very difficult. I think what ends up happening is that people will make what they like to make. They take it to a show, nothing sells, and they don't know why. And they assume it's because they're priced too high, so they price it lower. And in reality, it's because they're making product that they like, and not necessarily what the market would like. And unfortunately, the market can sometimes have what I consider bad taste. So that's what has to happen with a business. Is it becomes about, I'm sorry, but it becomes about making money, and you have to look at it that way. Yeah, and you've got to have all those different skills in marketing and sales. And yes, educate yourself, learn. Never stop learning. That's there are many books on the subject of starting craft businesses. You're going to have to learn technology. Yeah. I would say a lot of people will start making beautiful things. They'll put them on Etsy, and then they will wonder why they don't have any sales. And unfortunately, you have to market. Etsy will not sell your work for you. You're going to have to market that. And that may very well mean that 70 to 80% of your time is spent marketing, not making.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of the business.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating, but it's the reality.
Yeah. Not that we want to put anybody off, because, you know, we definitely want to, you know, improve the handmade market. It's definitely, you know,
and it is possible. It is possible to make a full living with it, making handmade goods. But you have to you have to approach it in an informed way. Yeah,
absolutely. But you definitely get something unique, something that's, you know, good quality, because somebody's put their heart and soul into it.
And it's not mass marketed. There's
absolutely.
It's unique. It's your own. There's definitely a market for it. Definitely.
Absolutely. So we've got a couple of other questions coming in. So Nina Stone in the UK, she said she appreciated your review of the Lucy clay slicer. That was really helpful.
Thank you.
Are you going to be reviewing the new Mammoth Elephant Clay Roller?
I did have some conversations with her about that, and I hope to. I would really like to use it. And
and it really is a mammoth, isn't it?
I've seen the pictures. That's impressive.
Yeah.
He did speak with me a little bit about features that it needed, and I tried to provide some feedback on that. I have been sort of preparing for this. I've been collecting pasta machines, and I plan to be reviewing each of them shortly, so that you can have a better idea of. Oh, that's fine. I want to review those, and then because now I have I have the Dream Machine. I have a whole bunch of different pasta machines, and so I'm hoping to get that one, so we can make it a complete comparison.
Fantastic. Look forward to that. Okay. Enid Winder, not quite sure how you say your surname. Hi. Do you think that dropping a translucent piece of clay into cold water after baking helps the translucency?
That's an old question.
Is it another one of those myths?
It's another one. I believe it's one of those myths. The people that say it works, they very strongly say it works, and it absolutely helps. And the interesting thing is, I've never been able, the reason why I've not written about it actually is because I've never been able to get it to work. And that doesn't mean that it works and I'm not seeing it. That could be the situation. But every time that I've ever taken two identical pieces out of the oven and plunged one into ice water and let the other one cool on the counter, I come back 3 or 4 hours later when the temperatures have equalized. I see no difference in translucency. That doesn't mean that it doesn't happen, but I've never seen it, so I think it's a myth.
Right, okay. And does, I know I've seen other people comment that if you bake it slightly higher temperature, it gets more translucent?
It depends on the clay.
Okay.
That is absolutely true with Pardo. Pardo gets much more clear when you bake it at a higher temperature. That is not necessarily true with Primo and Primo and Fimo. Now, that being said, if you're under baking your translucent clays, then they will be cloudier. Because when you think about it, translucent clay, when it is raw, is opaque. It's whitish or creamish colored, and it obviously needs to bake to get that translucency. So you do need adequate baking.
Excellent, thank you. And okay, Tammy Frame from Indiana. Hi.
Tammy.
You must be up really early this morning. Thank you very much. How do you go about starting a career to be a spokesperson for Polymer Clay or a demo artist?
Well, I don't actually know. A good one to ask about that actually would be Cindy Holt, who is a spokesperson and demo artist for Polyform, for the sculpting clays. And she would be someone that could answer that. I don't do it myself. I try to be independent. I am not aligned with any company. I'm not aligned with anyone but myself. So I do that so that I can be as impartial as possible. When I write about something, you're getting my opinion, and no one's going to influence that. And so I don't really know.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay. And another question coming in. Lisa Walker. Lisa says, hi. She really loves your work.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you've got quite a few fans in the UK, I can tell you.
Good.
Do you have any finishing tips for a high gloss?
Well, that's where I do the little sales pitch and say that the sanding and buffing ebook is really going to give you the best answer to that. The biggest reason why people don't get a high gloss with sandpaper, with sanding and buffing, is because they're not smoothing it well enough with the lower grits. You have to get it completely smooth with the first grit before you go to the next grit, higher. And that's going to be the biggest and most common problem, but that's all covered very thoroughly in that ebook.
Your brand new ebook.
My brand new ebook, go for that. But it's a good question though.
Okay, we'll make sure we put a link to that in the comments. Okay, and here's a question. I think this one was from Tracy. What advice do you have for people who like to write their own tutorials?
People who spend their money on a tutorial deserve to have a professional product. And it's really important that you take the time to write a complete tutorial. Make sure that you have an editor that goes over the words, and make sure that it flows properly, that it makes sense. Make sure that if it's a tutorial for doing a specific project or technique, send it to a couple of other players and make sure that they work through it, that all the steps are there. Make sure you're using clear photographs. Make sure that you know how to use publishing software so that you can get the kind of formatting that you need, that it's professionally formatted. Don't rely on using the word processor in your that comes with your computer. Not that you can't use that, but you need to know how to use all of its full capabilities. And in order to make a quality tutorial like this, it's going to take skills that you may not have. Either learn them or find somebody who can help you with it. This is, I know that when I write my tutorials and my ebooks, I do have a team. My husband helps me. I have other friends who are professionals who are able to give me advice when I don't know how to do something. Or, for instance, this last tutorial, I had edited this ebook. It was edited by several people who went through it with a fine-tooth comb, and I still missed things. Frustrating.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you very much. So we've got a couple more questions. Okay, so Caroline Saleva. Not quite sure where you're from, but hi Caroline. Any guidelines on how to price your things? Is it really hard to set the price? That's one of those eternal questions, isn't it?
It is the eternal question. When you're talking about products that you're selling, I'm assuming like for a craft fair or selling on Etsy, there are two philosophies on that I think are important. If all you're doing is selling to your friends, and your friends don't have very much money, obviously you don't want to gouge them and set your prices very high. You're going to be compassionate to them and have a more fairly priced product. On the other hand, if you're doing this as a business, then your prices absolutely have to make enough money so that your materials are taken care of, your time is paid for at the hourly rate that you feel that you need to be getting, that your overhead is taken care of. And that means everything. That's part of your internet, your software fees, your heating and cooling for your studio, all the different aspects that the expenses of your business, that all has to be covered in the price of your product. And if you cannot charge a high enough price for your product to cover all of that, then you need to have a product that you can charge more for. You need to have a more expensive product. You're not going to be able to do that on $3 earrings. You're just not.
Mm-hmm.
You just won't be able to make a living doing that. So you need to price to cover your costs, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, thank you. And Suzanne Barr, she's in Zurich. Hi. Did you review the Polefast machine? I've not heard of that one. Do you know that
Polyfast, the Polyfast, yes.
one? Ah, okay.
Yes, I have it. I've been working with, and I'm not sure how to say it, Jean Bellon, I'm assuming, is the owner of the Polyfast company. Polyfast, just so that you know, it's a handheld sander that vibrates, and it's like it's a wand that you use to sand the. It has Velcro sanding paper on the ends, and it really does work well. It's we're still tweaking it. Well, he's tweaking it, and I did look at it. I had some suggestions. I know he's sending it to focus groups, but it's something that I'm working on getting a review for.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. And I do believe that he posted a link on the British Polymer Clay Guild page, because I think they've launched their website in the last couple of days.
And they have PayPal available. And for the US, there is, I believe there's US pricing on it as well, so you can order it.
Yeah, so you can go and have a look at it through that link. Fantastic, thank you.
And that was poly-fast.com.
Yeah, Poly, P-O-L-E.
P-O-L-Y.
Oh, P-O-L-Y. Okay.
P-O-L-Y-fast.
Anyway, the link's on the page, so in the other people's posts, but we'll probably put it in the comments as well. Fantastic, okay. So talking of tools, do you have a favourite tool that you like to use?
The one that I use for absolutely every project would probably be my X-Acto knife.
Yeah.
I have old X-Acto knives that the blades are dull and that the tips have popped off because I pried with it like I shouldn't have. But I use my X-Acto knife for everything. I use it for picking up pieces to apply. I use it for just everything, poking, scraping, talking with my hands here. All the things that you would do, I use my X-Acto knife for that. And probably my blade as well. I love my blade.
Yeah. What I love is that you can find tools around your home. You don't need to spend a fortune on, fantastic
I actually have an article about that.
Right, brilliant. Yeah.
We should put the link for that one in
there. Yeah, definitely do that. Okay. And books, polymer clay books, kind of seem to be a little bit old-fashioned now. People are moving on to e-books and looking at things on YouTube, but actually there's some fantastic books in the libraries out there, and there's some recently. I think Cynthia Tinapple's done a couple of books recently showcasing artists from across the world. So really inspirational. Do you have a favourite book that you've come across?
Well, because I learned mostly from the internet, I really haven't read. I haven't read all the books that are out there by any means. There are many, many, many of them. One that I can recommend right off the top of my head that I think is a wonderful resource that anybody who does polymer clay should probably have is the one by Marie Siegel, and that's the Polymer Clay Artist's Guide, I believe it's called. And it's like a little mini dictionary where she shows a little snippet of a specific technique and basically how to do it. And it's just page after page after page of ideas and surface effects, and it's a really good place to go when you're stuck and you're not sure what to do. And I think it's just a good one to have in your library.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Okay, and one of the other benefits of being a member of guilds is that we get to know about conferences and events that are going on. We've got Euro Synergy coming up this July. Really excited. First time I'm going.
Are you going to go?
Yes.
I wish I could go.
So really looking forward to that. And again, people seem to think that they're if they're a beginner, they're not eligible to go, but that's not the case at all, is it? Have you attended a few in the US?
I have. I've only recently started going to conferences and retreats and workshops, and I strongly, highly recommend getting involved in going for workshops. And you learn so much, and it's like I said earlier about being involved with a guild. That being involved with the people means that you've got a lot of influx of ideas. You learn things from each other, but being in an environment where the goal is learning. It doesn't matter that everybody is learning. It's okay. And people wouldn't take a workshop if they already knew how to do it. So everybody is kind of at base level for that specific workshop anyway. So it doesn't really matter. Now, I think some workshop teachers do ask for a certain level of experience. So you wouldn't want to go in there not knowing how to condition clay. You'd want to have the basics figured out. But you wouldn't need more than, just the beginner should be able to do most workshops that I've seen.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
But I highly recommend it. It's just an incredible experience. It really is.
Yeah, I think it's great for networking as well. And actually meeting.
Oh, I joke that when it's only at a polymer clay meeting that you walk up to total strangers and put your arms around them and hug them. Next thing you know, you're just fondling their jewelry, and because you wouldn't do that to people on the street, but clayers, oh yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I love it here. And it's comfortable.
Yeah,
it's always comfortable. Everyone I've ever been to, it's great.
Yeah, and I think that happened to us, didn't it? We've been friends on Facebook for ages, and we met for the first time last weekend, and we were like, hey!
And everyone's been like that since I've been over here and visiting these guilds. It's just, oh, I know you! This is great!
Real feel good feeling. Okay. And I think, have we got any more questions that anybody else wants to ask? Okay. No. Okay. So what's next for you, do you think?
I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I have a backlog of tutorials that I need to get the time to do. I've got so many ideas. Oh my gosh, I've got hundreds and hundreds of things that I've been... Every time I get an idea, I don't have my phone handy, but I normally just stick it in my phone, and I've got just huge lists, and so many things that I want to do. The big thing is just having the time to do it. Yeah. I'm looking at ways of not being so detailed, because it means that it takes me so long to get everything done. But on the other hand, that's kind of nice to have the details. So it's always a fine line to walk, which way I go with that. But I'm also exploring different ways to different ways to reach people. Possible new media, possibly. And by that I mean video, maybe. I don't know. We'll see how this goes. This is the first time. This is the first time I've been on video, so people don't know that I talk with my hands.
So it's not been that bad an experience, really, has it?
No, you're wonderful.
Thank you. Okay. And Suzanne Bosch, a question just coming in. Can we see this interview again elsewhere? As it froze. I'm really sorry if the connection's frozen. We'll definitely save this video. We'll upload it to YouTube, and we'll perhaps edit it a bit so there's little snippets so that we can send those out.
Put links in the bottom to do that little YouTube thing where we go. Just because you haven't been able to be online live doesn't mean you won't be able to see all the questions that we've asked today. So really appreciate you spending the time with us and visiting us, and we look forward to welcoming you again. Thank you.
Maybe next year.
Thank you, Fiona, for being our tech supporter.
Thank you very much. So we're going to sign off and say goodbye.
Bye-bye.